Hey, Scott Jordan here for Jancast number 128 for Thursday, August 4th, 2020. I have my usual partner, Mark Warner here. And Mark, it looks like we have a guest in the lower thirds down there.
And we have a special guest, Mr. Bill Griffin, who, Bill, it's wonderful to have you on. You're certainly very well known within the industry. Your work with both the ISSA and the ISS and the IICRC is just phenomenal with standards and assessing and auditing. And I know you've written a number of books. We'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that when we once we've covered the news, Scott.
Yep.
All right, great.
Well, you've got some news at the very top there. We thought things were getting better, and maybe I think they are, but it's getting a little sketchy in some areas, right?
And well, I've been getting a lot of calls. Everybody's kind of wondering what's up with COVID these days. We've got the new variant, the BA.5. There's a version of the BA.5 called the BA.5.2, which, although these aren't more lethal, they're far, far more contagious. And it's getting to the point where people have kind of succumbed to the thought that, I guess we're all going to get this at some point. And then even if you catch it, doesn't mean you can't catch it again. So what's happening is people are kind of, we went through this phase where we were all afraid to be around people. Yep. Then we kind of thought we were coming out and we were all around people. And I think we're getting back to the point where there's a huge emphasis being put back on this extreme cleanliness concept. Yeah. That, there's so many things that are going on that people are afraid of catching that we just really need to keep our guard up. We can't let our guard down just because COVID's passed. We got monkeypox coming along, which could go the same path that HIV went. Yeah. We've got something called CRE, which is a carbapenem resistant enterococci that can leap out of a drain and infect people in nursing homes, and Acinetobacter baumannii, which is like, MRSA on steroids, and they're all out there. But more importantly, just to sum that up, is that some of what we've gone through in the last 2 years of COVID with disinfecting all kinds of things, studies are now showing that there are some brand new strains of all these other threats that have developed some degree of antimicrobial resistance. They call them AMRs. Yeah. So the fact that we've got this whole new crop of threats that we used to have to deal with, we could deal with pretty easily and routinely. A lot of them are developing this resistance factor, which means that our processes have to be really dialed in, which is really why we're so thrilled to have a guy like Bill Griffin on the call.
Well, some great news there, Mark. Thanks a lot for the update.
Just being Debbie Upper.
Yeah, you got some good news for us, Mark?
Okay, so if anybody that's still tuning in and listening to the show, I've got even better news. No, I have some good news on the supply chain side, because that's this whole COVID update show that we put together 2.5 years ago was about supply chain to start with. And the good news is things are starting to moderate. Price increases, I think we've all kind of hit the wall on how many price increases people can put through. It's pretty shocking, but I think it's got to slow down. Look at the lumber situation with building construction. Everybody stopped construction projects because they couldn't afford the lumber. And now all this lumber finally hits the supply chain and they can't sell it. So now the prices are plummeting or going down big time. So we're kind of probably seeing that. And then P&G just reported something last week about people are finally using up the products they stockpiled, and for during the pandemic and everything, they're finally replenishing their supplies. But interesting that the people that is more of the retail end, they're looking at store brands versus the big national brands. So that's something for our distributor people that are listening in to consider. All the more reason to have your own brand versus some national brand out there. So that's a blatant product plug there as part of our supply chain.
We call that a BPP.
So an abbreviation for everything.
Enough news. Let's chat with our guest now.
So Bill, I want to give you a formal introduction to all of our listeners. And I think it's so incredibly relevant right now. Yeah. As much as it sounded so depressing about infectious diseases, the part that means that there's opportunity, you have to know where your strengths and weaknesses are. We kind of know that. The Mother Nature points them out. But, are there opportunities and threats? Well, I talked about the threats. I think there's opportunity here. I think there's opportunity for people engaged with the cleaning industry that are educated and knowledgeable, certified and trained, working at a best practice level, you know, to be able to be the front line of defense against these things. And so the level of importance for us folks in the cleaning industry has become more and more important.
Yeah.
And Bill, you know, your background as an ISSA CIMS Assessor, as an ISSA CMI Master Trainer, as a fellow on the ISSA Standards Committees, many committees for that matter, not just the cleaning industry committee, but some of the other restorative committees. And you've been an IICRC instructor for many years. And on top of all that, you've written books. And on top of all that, Scott, on top of the books, he walks around with tape recorders too.
Yeah, trying to capture the moment, you know.
Back in
So
the day,
Bill,
yeah.
we're thrilled to have you on here, and we were joking about it before the recording started. Is that, you know, we all met about 20 years ago at a trade show where ATP was being introduced by Kim Metzler, and Bill came up to us with a tape player in his hand and said, "This stuff's really cool. What's it do?" You know, and I don't know if you remember, Scott, but we were like swabbing people's hands, and they were like walking away to go get like burgers, you know, and hot dogs, and we were like, "Whoa, look at this reading! Hold it, hold it! Well, you better wash up."
Where have my hands been, huh?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was where we all first met was, you know, during that time of getting interviewed for your, was that podcast or
Yeah,
what was the beginning of a podcast?
Yeah, I
sequence?
was doing some of that stuff. You know, that was 20 or more years ago, basically. You know, just to try a different way to gather the information and be able to present it and make it available for people. You know, I was kind of seeing the value of the video and doing that kind of stuff. And so, you know, but again, kind of got tired of it after a while too. But I just want to thank you guys though for inviting me to be able to spend some time with you.
Sure.
And with your viewers. You know, one of the things about the opportunity, you know, although COVID's been a real disaster and really caused a lot of problems, there has been some silver linings to it too. You know, Mark, you touched on a couple of them that, you know, the value of cleaning is much more important than it ever has been before. You know, we've always said we clean for health, but now actually people realize it's life and death issues that we clean for.
Yeah.
And we're doing a better job, you know. In the past, we just kind of, if it looked good, it was okay. But now, many times we have to prove scientifically that it is actually clean, you know, or safer than it was. And we're much more aware, and the public is much more aware and appreciating what we do in the cleaning industry. So I think there's a lot of good things also that has come out of it also.
There's also some degree of doubt that exists out there too, right? So what I find is that people are a little conscious of the fact that they want to know that the people that are cleaning their offices or cleaning their homes actually know how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because you can actually be the cause of spread of disease if you don't really know what you're doing. And as much as that's relevant to people getting their homes cleaned or their offices cleaned, and as a CIMS assessor, you're actually engaged with documenting with building service contractors as being kind of up to a best practice, I would think. But I know I'm kind of jumping ahead here a little bit, but like I think that there's a lot of people on the consumer side and user side that want to know that people are skilled and knowledgeable about what they're doing. And whether or not that leads to some kind of training or certification, you know, is the big question. I know, Scott, you were curious, like, who is it that wants to get certified?
Why do you need to be certified?
Well, you know, one of the things I guess is that there's been a kind of a growth and interest in the training and in the certification of what we call third-party assessments. You know, it started a long time ago. Other industries, you know, the cleaning industry is not like the first nose through the door. You know, we're kind of the tail of the dog that goes through the door generally. You know, but other industries much bigger than us have always used third-party assessments and certifications to give themselves credibility and to separate themselves from their competition. And it's finally come to the cleaning industry. And you're right, it's definitely much more important than it's ever been before. And it is a way to separate people out. You know, when you go put something out to bid, you know, you put out to bid and, you know, get all these bids, and then you got to try to sort through and figure out, you know, which one you want to use if you're a building. Well, if you put a requirement that they're CIMS certified or some other third-party certification, that does some pre-separation for you. So you're almost assured that that group you're going to get has met some standards already. And so your chances are better of getting a qualified company and individuals in there. So it definitely is going up in value and interest.
I've seen in early adopters of requiring certified practitioners were like military bases, U.S. government, and maybe some higher ed. Who are you finding now as being the people that are either specifying the requirement of CIMS certified or trying to get that badge of honor on their own facility with their own in-house? Who are you finding doing that?
Well, let me back up first just a little bit and mention what CIMS stands for, Cleaning Industry Management Standard. And really, it's what we call the pillars of a successful business or an operation. There was a committee put together, and it was interesting also. I was talking to, I do CIMS things almost every day. And I was interviewing the one yesterday on a tour out of California for a contract cleaner. And this is our 7th time. I've been doing this for 14 years, so how time flies. But the contract cleaners, to answer your question, contract cleaning companies are probably one of the leading ones, but also municipalities, airports, stadiums, anybody who really wants to have some validation that they have the processes in place, they're going to assure that the work gets done properly. And even the people get treated properly, and they have there's a green endorsement available too with CIMS. But the CIMS program is really, in my mind, a very useful, one of the best things that I think the ISSA has ever come up with or ever actually done that has made a difference and a value to their members and to the cleaning industry. Sometimes people say, well, Bill, at your age, why are you still doing these assessments? You've been doing these here for us like 7 times. Haven't you retired yet? I always tell them that I said, listen, the reason that I continue to do the assessments is because of the changes and the difference and the value that I see in it in the individuals that I'm able to work with and in their companies, how they change and how they grow from a company that, we want to do better. We want to have this. We need this. And then over the period of years of doing these recertifications every 2 years, you start to see the people, taking classes and getting certified and getting excited about it and bringing other people in, and their company's growing. I had one the other day, a guy we talked to, and every time I go back to research, he says, yeah, but what's the ISSA doing to help us promote this? And then I go, and I say, listen, well, I think they could do more, and we're working on projects all the time. But then I look back and I go out on the interview to all his staff, and they're so excited and they have all these processes in place that they didn't have, 14 years ago. They've become far more professional, and they're getting more accounts all the time, So really, even though everybody would like everybody else to do something for them, the benefits to the individual companies and the individuals in the companies is the greatest thing that takes place. They have now a program to follow and operate by.
Yeah, Mark has told me about a couple people that he trained back whenever 6-7 years ago, and at that point they were maybe down the ladder on the chain, and now they're like the manager of a multi-building facility, and it's like, it's really cool to be able to say, well, I helped that person get along in a certain direction, and look at how well they've done with that knowledge.
And that's one of the most rewarding things in our industry, to be able to be a teacher, an educator, and to bring standards to people and certifications. Is that people come up to you and go, hey, I came to your seminar like 15 years ago, Bill, we didn't have any clean accounts. We got 50 million of them now. Or somebody comes up and goes, listen, I bought your book. I read it. I applied it. Somebody stole it. But, I want you to know I bought 4 houses and put 3 kids through college, running that cleaning business,
Yeah, that's cool.
And that happens to everybody that does the kind of things that I'm involved with, at least the training and the education, the certification. And I think that's why the CIMS program is real good. And also the IICRC and the training they do, and any other organization, the ISSA, the things that they bring to the table change people's lives, or change people's lives so they can change other people's lives. And that's really what's important about what we do in the cleaning industry. It's just not about cleaning buildings.
I've often thought that the CIMS program had like a major benefit for building service contractors. It sets them apart from, I mean, who can't just get a magnetic sign and stick it on their SUV and claim to be in business, right? So it sets them apart, and you have like this expectation. But the other question like tied into that, Bill, is other than building service contractors, there are organizations that look at CIMS almost as a badge of honor, in the same way manufacturers look at ISO. What do you find there? Do you find it to be like higher ed, colleges, university, Fortune 500? I'm just guessing, but what's your experience?
Universities are real good because they're into education to begin with. They usually have a stronger, if you look at, K-12 and then community colleges and universities, there's a different flavor and feel with the university group, because I think they spend more emphasis on the training and the education than other places do, and maybe a little more budget too. But it really does make a difference when you have a program that you operate by, and I look at it and I go, how would you like to try to deal with all the stuff you have to deal with as a business and not have some kind of a manual or a map or a process to follow? That means you're reinventing the wheel every single day rather than operating the business and that's what CIMS is all about. It's about how to prevent the problems rather than have to fight the fires. Not that there won't be some still, but you've eliminated most of them because you got a process in place. And then if there are cutbacks or growth, you're able to adjust fairly easy because you've got a documented program to follow. You don't have to start over from scratch all the time. So it really makes those things much easier. It doesn't eliminate all the problems, but boy, it sure gives you a leg up on avoiding most of them.
Well, it gives you a good base to expand upon down in the future too. Well,
it goes both ways. Now with the COVID the last few years, I have a lot of people when I'm doing the assessment say, well, we used to have this building here and we still have it. And it was 14 floors, but they're only using 4 of it now, and so we had to cut back. They were good to us for a year or so, but after that, they started cutting. And then now we have to deal with that, so there's all those issues. It still gives you a program regardless of whether you're growing or you're having to shrink. And the business cycle, those things always take place.
Yeah.
And there's some unique elements where CIMS comes in too, where one of the things we've talked about in previous Jancast shows is that the future looks like we're going to be moving into an arena where people aren't just looking for extreme cleanliness, but they're also looking at kind of detoxifying their environment. So the whole green and sustainability movement is liable to get a lot of traction moving forward. And of course, the U.S. Green Buildings Council's LEED program, Leadership for Energy and Environmental Design, is something that a lot of large organizations embrace. And I think that's one of the other side benefits of CIMS, right? Is the CIMS-GB program, which is perhaps one of the most powerful parts of it that allows people to document that they understand green initiatives and how to stay compliant. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, the CIMS program has 6 different elements to it. You mentioned the green or sustainable cleaning element, which is an additional endorsement. You get first the basic CIMS, and then you can get the second one for the green sustainability cleaning also. But another section is this health, safety, and environment. And again, that's the environmental thing, talking about all the aspects of what goes on inside a building. The air is only one part of it. It can be lighting, can be heat, can be noise, can be radio waves. I mean, all kinds of things happen in a building these days. And people are getting more knowledge and more concerned about them. Then also in the CIMS program, they have a service delivery section that we take a look at, then a management commitment section. There's about 140 different specific items that we go through as an assessor to make sure that they have those things in place. And when I get a notice from the ISSA, says, listen, call these people up, they've applied, and you're going to be their assessor. And I'll call them up and I'll say, well, they said, what do I got to do? Well, here's the assessor checklist. There's 140 items. You got to be able to prove to me that you actually have a training program, and people go through it and sign that they attend it. And you've got to have management training, and you got to have commitment, and you got to have a safety element, and you got to have a quality control element, and all these different things. Then they get all this together in some manuals, and then I come and look at it, and I say, well, we've done all this work, we've really finished it, And I says, this is not just about doing these books and getting this plaque on the wall. This is about how you run and change and develop your business. Yeah. This is a continuous process improvement project. And so they said, well, gee, we've done all this work. We're just so happy to be done. I said, you haven't even started yet. Then they got to go into shock, and I says, if you really want the financial return on what you invested in doing this, because it's not cheap. I says, you've got to make it the way you run your business. You've got to change to make cleaning, to see cleaning differently, and to see the way you treat your people differently, and the way you bid buildings. All these things have to change, and they have to constantly change to keep up with the changes in society and the needs of the customers. And it's kind of a philosophy about how you run the business. And if they do that, it's just amazing. I've seen multi-billion-dollar companies totally turn around what they were doing and improve their process. And I've seen companies with just 1 or 2 people do the same thing, turn around how they run and the customers and the service they provide and the quality. All those things can be impacted. And it's just a great, at the same time, I would tell you too, probably about 20% of the people who apply don't make it to the first step. They pay their money, they make a deposit, but they just can't get their act together enough to get into the process and actually document all this stuff. And actually that's good, I think, because they really weren't qualified to be one.
Yeah.
A certified contractor.
It leads to a question that we've all seen press releases about people going through the CIMS program and some going through and getting CIMS with honors. Can you explain what the different ranking is for CIMS and
the
CIMS
honors,
with
again,
honors?
you have to have, 70-some% or something of all. There's a group of them, what we call mandatory requirements. You have to have 100% of those. It's not an option. Okay. Then you've got some, it's kind of called a green column. You have to have at least 65 or 70% of those to get CIMS certified. If you get all those, and then you have about 10 or 15 more things that you can do to become an honors contractor. And again, that's for the cream of the crop. Most people don't get the honors on the first time. And as far as I look at it, I don't never give honors. You earn honors, okay, by doing the best job possible, by going the extra mile. And really, it's what people do with the program after they get certified that makes all the difference to them and their customers and their people. It's not about the books and it's not about the plaque. It's about how you keep challenging yourself and your people and your business to get better every day. And that's really where the return on the investment comes. And those people, those are the honors people, and those are the ones that shine.
Cool. Good.
Well, how do you get more information regarding these different levels? Like, how do I even get enrolled with this? And what are the benchmarks I got to hit just to be on the books? And what does it take? All these things that you just described are fantastic information for our listener audience. But curious whether or not there's somewhere where this information is readily available.
Well, the program is administered by the ISSA, International Sanitary Supply Association. If you go to ISSA.com and then just search CIMS, CIMS certification, they'll have all kinds of information on there, and you can call them and they'll send you some information or have somebody give you information for it.
We'll put a link in the show notes below the video for make it a little bit easier for people to get to it as well.
And there's about 12 assessors like myself maybe there's 15 in the world now that do this kind of thing. But again, we do, I don't know on everybody's part, but I do somewhere between 15 and 20, 25, 30 of these a year and have done for 14 years.
Wow.
So I stay fairly busy with it. I enjoy it. It's just a great program.
If somebody says, I know there's 15 assessors, but I want Bill Griffin, how do they get Bill Griffin?
That's what they should say. When they call the ISSA, say, is it possible to get Bill Griffin? And I've had some people go, well, we wanted to ask for you, but we were just fearful that it was going to be so tough with you doing it that we thought maybe we should get somebody else. But we're so glad that we got you, so I'm happy to hear that as well. And I'll help them. I do everything I can to help a person through the process. It's not necessarily an easy process because, people are running business and they're busy, they're bids, and they got problems and all this kind of challenges with staff. But the only way to solve some of those problems is to put a program in place that deals with those problems and helps prevent as many as possible. But if you haven't got the time to do that, if you aren't willing to put forth the effort to do that and get your people in a process, then CIMS certification is not going to be for you. Go just get one where you pay your money and don't have to do anything. Get that kind of certification. Don't get a real one where you got to actually perform and benefit from it.
Good. Well, that's some great info. Appreciate you being on the show, and nice to see you again. We've all aged well, right?
Well, yeah. Hopefully, we'll continue to do that too. I just might mention too to put a plug in there for my website's cleaningconsultants.com, and there's a pull-down menu across the top that says free stuff, and that's where I park all the good stuff that I've come across the last 20 years. And most of it you can just download it for free. It's all kinds of links and articles and PowerPoints and things I've collected across the industries in the past.
All right. Well, we'll definitely put that link in the notes.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, you guys, and keep it clean out there.
Yeah, thank you so much for being part of this program. We're really grateful.
No problem. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, you guys. Good luck.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. See ya.